Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Life Health Show. I'm so excited for my next guest. This is Zina. Everybody, meet Zina. Zina, say hello to the audience.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today, Paul. Thanks so much for the invite.
Zina, I've thank you for being here. I've done so many lectures and interviews and retreats, and every time I go to have a retreat, I like to invite people to speak to people that are teaching, but who have personally experienced certain things that they can connect with people on an emotional level, not just an educational level. And I helped myself overcome inflammatory bowel disease, so I feel a personal passion to when I see somebody with that to teach them that. So I want people to hear your powerful story because let's go back to maybe younger in life. Uh, Before you started eating healthy or getting into health, how was your younger life? Were you always sick? Were you pretty healthy? Did you think about diet or did you not think about it? How was it? Where are you from, first of all, originally?
Yeah, I'm a Midwesterner by origin, but my family moved us to California when I was 3 years old. So I grew up in California most of my life. And then as an adult, I traveled a bit and then ultimately lived outside of America for 15 years and have recently returned to this nation.
Okay, okay. Well, I want to say welcome back, but it's very tough times here. But so
Yeah.
you're in California now, right?
Yes, I'm currently in California. And as a child, uh, I ate like any other Western child would, and that would be your basic SAD, the sad standard American diet, as we now quote nowadays. I ate in the morning, Pop Tarts and cereal, all the sugared cereals. And my mom breakfast is my favorite meal of the day. So she would make French toast and pancakes and scrambled eggs. And we would just eat these lavish meals in the morning. And then for lunch, a typical diet, if I would say I was eating a diet, would be hot dogs and hamburgers and, you know, pizza. And I at a very young age, I was very prone to sugar. So I ate a lot of candy, uh, any kind of candy. If it was sugary, I really enjoyed it. And then for evening meals, we ate the typical, I guess, a Western diet as well, which would be again going to pizzas and hot dogs and hamburgers. And I really loved the blood meats like roast beef and lots of beef. I was really a beef eater. And but at a very young age, I started having digestive issues. I think I was about 9 or 10 when I started having tremendous cramping in my stomach. And I had to go to the doctors probably a good 5 or 6 times through the years with severe cramping. And every time I went, the doctor just attributed it to growing pains, and even my bones hurt. And so that was just, you just accept where you are at that station of life. And as I got older, I knew I was definitely a sugarholic and love sugar. I remember as a kid, my little sister and I would eat at 7-Eleven every Friday night. That would be our go-to for our meals on Fridays. She would order what she ordered, and I would order a bean burrito and have like a Snickers bar or Three Musketeers bar and a Dr. Pepper or Sprite or 7 Up. We just ate horrifically, and I had the common ills like everybody else does that we call common. They're common ills, and that's typical headaches. You're looking at having a flu every year. You get colds and you start having gut issues. You don't go to the bathroom for maybe 3 or 4 days at a time, not having a bowel movement. And this was very atypical for me. And I realized when I was in my early 20s that I had hypoglycemia. And that was, I would regulate that just by sugar and getting that sugar boost, if you will. And then when I was in my early 20s, I had never drank coffee. I just wasn't a coffee drinker, and I drank coffee with my father one day, and I drank 2 cups of coffee with him, and within 20 minutes I had the very first migraine that I had ever experienced in my life.
Wow.
And I suffered with chronic severe migraines for a decade, to the point that I would lose my eyesight. and they would be so severe that I would have to go and get put on narcotics. And when you're on the narcotic, it actually isn't healing the migraine. It basically just puts you in a state of being that you don't care that you're in severe pain. So you're just, it's an altered state. And so, I was dealing with that for a very long time. Also, I come from a family of heart disease. And again, I didn't understand any of this because I lacked knowledge. I had no education. And you trust the white coats, you trust the doctors. And because my little sister was a survivor of major open heart surgery when children would die, 60, 70 years ago from major heart surgery, she was the fifth survivor to major open heart surgery. And so we really trusted doctors because they saved my little sister's life. And so I would have all these heart palpitations. I would have like a eurythmic feeling and a hypertension feeling. And I would go to the doctors and they would put a Holter monitor on me. And I did this for about 3 years in a row. And they just said, this is pretty much your lot in life. And you just accept it. You just accept that this is the way that it is. But here's where the catch is. Paul, the catch for me was I was a believer. I'm a faith. I have faith in God. Um, and I was crying out to God like every other believer would. When you don't feel good, you just run to the throne and we're like, God, heal me. But he didn't. And I prayed a lot. And my husband brought home a book to me about a woman that had cancer. And through changing her diet and lifestyle, the cancer, without chemo, radiation, surgery, any of our modern modalities, for what we would consider to be a cure. She healed herself just by changing her diet and life. Although I didn't have cancer, I just had, a variety of debilitating sicknesses and illnesses. I said, I'm gonna make some changes. So the first thing I did was in this book, she talked a lot about eating meat and the toxicities that are in our meats with all the steroids, growth hormones, antibiotics, being raised in these really small environments so they get no fitness and they have tumors. And when they're going to process the meats, they just cut the diseased piece out and then they go ahead and serve that to us humans. And so in reading that information, I made a decision that day that I would be a non-meat eater. And that was over 30 years ago. And to this point, I still have not eaten meat. And then after that,
Do you remember
after
what
that
book?
revel
Remember what book it was?
and that is the thing that's probably always going to get me. And I have looked through the years. I didn't realize then that my life was going to change upon the reading of that book. I did not have any idea. It would have been just like reading an article. You read it. I could ask somebody now, hey, do you
That was
remember that
30 years
article?
ago.
This was about, at this point, I think I'm leaning more towards 31 or 32 years
Okay.
that I have been living this way. And so it was just, it transformed my life. And what ended up happening to me, it's an incremental thing. I always say the road to health, be patient with yourself. It's not necessarily a sprint. It can happen rapidly, but it is going to be a marathon because you're going to be changing holistically in your body, in your mind, and even if you're in your spirit, if you believe that you are a created being, spirit, soul, and body in the imagery of God. And so I didn't get the healing that I asked for in that moment. But Paul, the beautiful thing, and this is what I'm very grateful, if I would have gotten healed right in the moment when I said, okay, genie in the bottle, heal me right now, and I got healed, I would have carried on the way that I was living my life. I would have continued just eating the way I did. I wouldn't have been physical. I would have carried my life as I had been before all of the sicknesses and the illnesses came on. But what I got, and this is something that is spoken about in the Bible, it's called a word of knowledge. And that word of knowledge turned my trajectory to where at that point I continued to gain knowledge. And as I applied the knowledge to my life, I started to get younger. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I'm now 61. And at this time, I started feeling better. All my headaches went away. My heart palpitations stopped. I started having vitality. I wasn't having hypoglycemic behaviors anymore. My body was just really kind of balancing out. All my digestive issues went away. So the health problems went away, but we don't think about the benefits that come with that. So the benefits
Uh,
were for me.
If you don't mind,
I'm
before
sorry,
you
go
get
ahead.
into the benefits, so
Yes.
Did you cut meat out, stop eating meat immediately when you read this book, or did you take, like, a couple of weeks or a couple of months?
No, in that moment, I just felt like this is the thing to do right now. And so when I stopped, and this is again, we are bio individuals, everyone's going to make their own decisions. For me, it was not an issue at all. When I made the decision was made. And to this day, I've not ever been tempted to eat meat. It
Now
was just, I was done.
now being a Bible believer, in Genesis 9:3, it says, you know, God said, if you want to eat meat, you could eat meat. Did you run across this theology in your mind that says, well, the Bible says I could eat meat, but this lady got healed without eating meat? Or did you, or maybe anybody in your church, say, well, it's not wrong to eat meat or anything like that? Did you run into any issues, or did you just make this decision and you like from a biblical standpoint, did you struggle with that decision or did you just do it?
No, I didn't struggle with it because if we look at Genesis 1:29, it says from the very beginning, these shall be your things for meat. And so these is what he said, that he would provide us anything that's bearing a seed or a plant. That actually would be our original design. And after the flood, and when God had to clear or cleanse the earth, if you will, of mankind and the things that they were doing, that is the time that he actually reintroduced, or he introduced, excuse me, meat into the diet of humankind. It's also the same time that the lifespan also decreased. And so, if we look at it biblically, I'm in the process of writing a book, and it is a book basically for believers, that is a biblical teaching of what does God really say holistically about what we're putting in our bodies, not just food, but spirit, soul, and body, renewing the mind, understanding that we are created in his imagery, and how, here's an example, you get a headache, and then all of a sudden you've got a little bit of an attitude because your body affects your brain. And your brain also affects your body. If you're not fueling your brain cells, you're not fueling your cells, which is yourself, then your body is going to follow along with what you decided you were going to do. The Spirit of God is the voice of truth, it's the voice of reason. It will never lead you astray. So when you walk in harmony with the Spirit of God and you agree with what He is leading you to, your body will just naturally reap the benefits of it. So biblically, I work with a lot of people, and the people that I work with, if they are believers, they get to choose. They can choose to eat meat. I don't. It's not an unbiblical choice. It's just a choice that I chose to make. I just chose to stay in the garden versus bringing meat into my life. And at once, when I stopped, there was no temptation for me to ever go, and I've
Well,
not. I've not seen any negative effects.
it wasn't just a simple choice you made, it was a life-altering change that you made. You stopped eating the meat, and you told us about the suffering that went away, but now tell us about the benefits that happened when you stopped eating meat.
Yes. And again, I think this is kind of like, this is a little bit, could be a little bit on the vanity side if you aren't keeping that at bay. Make sure for me to stay humble with the benefits that have happened for me is I literally feel like I'm a 17-year-old kid. I have a tremendous amount of energy. My nails grew, my hair grew, my eyes turned greener. I sleep better. I have always had I've been considered more of a non-sleeper, and these are people that have very short sleep spans. I still do have short sleep spans, but I don't wake up feeling lethargic. I can get up in the morning at 6 o'clock, 5:30, and get up and go run 3 miles. I do a lot of physical activities, and I'm cognitive all the time, and I'm not ever sick. I'm just always well. And I have not taken in as much as an aspirin in my body in over 30 years. Nothing. I don't put toxins in. Again, I do eat some processed foods, so there is toxicity in that. And I do that more for social reasons, more for just palatability. In most things, you
Yes.
can mimic or duplicate anything that you would eat that's toxic and make it healthy. So
So besides the meat that you gave up, uh, was there and I assume the coffee, I assume, was there anything else besides just the meat at that point, or was it just the meat? Or did you give up, like, dairy, and did you give up all animal products? So you gave up all animal products, so you became a vegan.
Eventually what ended up happening is I initially just cut out the meat, and then my next steps that I graduated towards was going more live whole foods, plant-based. And I also what I did is I wanted to purify particular areas of my nutrient intake. So because I loved breakfast, that was the last thing I approached. Wasn't much of a dinner eater. I didn't really care about dinner, but I love lunch. And so what I would take is the dinner menu and I started to really purify that. I eliminated meat altogether. So what I would do is only eat like vegetarian pastas, but I would always make sure that I call it crowding out. I would crowd out my plate with primarily live food, big salads or cut up vegetables, and then I would have a smaller portion of my meal be processed food, something that I would basically apply heat to, but it would always be vegetarian. And then I would increase that by doing like going 100% raw for months at a time or every other month. I got very creative in the kitchen. Another thing that I adopted into my lifestyle in the very beginning was I did start a juicing protocol, and to this day, I have remained on a juicing protocol, and I will stay on that for the rest of my life because we are living in a culture, and I say culturally because I've lived abroad, and there are different soils that we are exposed to in the West versus in Asia, Southeast Asian, and other other countries. So in the West, because so much of our soils are devoid of nutrients, I call it super nutrifying my body. And so I couldn't sit and eat 15 carrots, but I can juice 15 carrots and I can consume them. So and it goes right to the digestive system, bypasses the gut, and it goes right into the bloodstream. So it's I will always stay a juicer.
So when you stopped eating meat, did you did you find books and educate yourself, or did you just do it on the intuition and just say, "Hey, I'm just going to replace that with vegetarian meals"? And did you start using like the fake vegetarian meat, or did you just go to fruits and vegetables? And again, was there a book, or did you do it on your own tuition?
Yeah, this is a really good question. And I think it's really good for any of our listeners too, because we want to be really gentle in the process of maybe where you are in this process of making a lifestyle transformation. I would say if somebody is very chronically ill or you've got diseases like cancer or autoimmune, things that you really, I mean, you're on the really sad side of wellness. I would be serious about it. I've worked with people that I've seen them perish because they really didn't make the changes when they were so diseased. And so in the transitional process, initially, I have a thing that I call substitution, replacement, and elimination. So I did substitute meat items for like, I told you I love deli meats. And so I would eat like, roast beef sandwiches. And so I would go out and get the imitation meats to substitute. Eventually, I eliminated those altogether. So I don't use any of the processed, fake meats, if you will. When I don't have a desire for that. But initially, and if I have a client and they want to transition, I think they should have the right and the privilege to go ahead and just make those transitions because they're just trying to reverse, things. A lot of people are coming for weight loss, but weight loss should be a natural byproduct of a healthy body.
Sure, absolutely. So you've been doing this now for over 30 years. Do you take any supplements, or is it all diet?
No, it is 100% diet related for me. Uh, again, even in the wellness world, sometimes there's different opinions and there can be opposing opinions. But for me and my body, I haven't had any issues. I'm strong, I'm vital. I do go get well woman checks. And in those times, the doctors are like, yeah, you've got a wonderful heart rate. You're a healthy human being. So I don't supplement. I mean, I consider super juicing or super nutrifying my supplement.
Okay. So you said you get wellness checks. So you do get blood tests to make sure everything's okay.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
30 years vegan, and your B12 and all your other nutrients have come up fine on the blood test.
Yes, and, because B12 is a topic that's come up within the last decade or so, I if you need to do a B12 supplement, that's fine. Everybody can have an, individual opinion. Just for me personally, I just go back to the garden. And if we look at an apple, there's so many nutrients and minerals and vitamins that we probably have yet to discover. The science behind nutrition is so young. And so I just really trust that if God said it, I can depend on it.
All right. So give us an example of your average day when it comes to food. What time you get up and how often do you eat?
Mhm. For me, again, this is me being years into this. I didn't start out this way, but here's where I am today. Today, basically, I'll get up between 5 and 6 a.m. And then I will get up and immediately take what I call a ginger pow. I've got an ebook. If you're interested, send me, you'll go to my
I'll
website
put the link
and
below to your website.
yeah, yeah, go to the website and say, "Hey, I want your ebook, the juicing ebook," because I also have an ebook on raw cuisine. But I get up and I drink what I call the ginger pow. It's just a 2-ounce little shot. It's just straight ginger and green apple. Get myself a little ginger pow real quick, and then I will go and take care of business in the morning. And I want to kind of talk about that a little bit because this is really, really important. When your body is clean, you will eliminate 2 to 3, even 4 times a day, and they will be very healthy. I call them floaters, very healthy floaty BM, and it will just fill the toilet, and you will, and it literally will take you maybe 4 seconds to go. It's just a very quick, easy elimination. I mean, we call it the swipe test, and the ass sphincter, if you will, was designed to open up and shut off. That's why we think, how they use toilet paper back in the, back in the beginning of time, but they didn't need toilet paper because the body is created to open up and eliminate and pinch off, and we should be not having any swipe issues. And so I'll eliminate after I've had my little ginger pow, and then what I'll do is I get up and start my fitness program. So I'll go outside, and I believe that there's 7 pillars to health. And so one of those, the number one need of the body, is actually oxygen. We always talk about food, but it's actually not as a priority as our air is. And so I go outside as the early morning sun is rising, and I do a breathing or a breath protocol that I've been doing for a long time, and just really oxygenate my body, get the blood flowing, get circulation and aerating my body. And then I'll start to work out. So I will work out anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour 15 minutes, depending on what I'm doing that day. And then when I come back, I'll have my second juice of the day. And that breakfast meal for me, that was my favorite meal. I rarely eat breakfast anymore. So because I'm already starting to super nutrify my body, I'm very active in the morning. So I'm taking care of either my clients, I'll start my clients in the morning. And then if I eat a solid meal, then I will eat anywhere between like 11 o'clock, maybe to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And that is my largest meal of the day. And that will always include something that, again, I still crowd out. So it will be like a large salad. And I'm talking about, when I say large, I mean large. I'm a small person. I'm petite in stature. I'm small framed. I weigh 100 and, 15 pounds, 116 pounds soaking wet, but I will eat a large salad, not these little tiny petite salads. It's a large salad, and I will put anything in that salad, anything that's alive, I can put in there. I put nuts and seeds, and I may put a little bit, a very small amount of some fruit in there. Typically, it's all vegetation, and then I sometimes I'll eat like if I feel like I want something a little starchy, I might have like a baked potato with it, or I might have a sweet potato with it. And then, um, in reference to what I'm fueling my body with, to be honest with you, I only eat about 1.5 meals a day because I am going to juice about 2 hours after I'm eating, and then I might eat like a micro meal in the evening time, and then I'm going to juice again. So I'm, depending on what my physical activity is, I'm drinking a minimum of 3 juices a day, up to 5 juices a day, depending on what my physical
How,
activity.
how,
And those are 8 ounces.
8. I was just going to ask you how big are the cups? So 8 ounces, and give us
Mhm.
an example of what your average juice consists of.
Well, It consists of the rainbow, every type of vegetation almost that you can imagine. In my 17 Fades of Juicing, the ebook that I wrote, when I started working with people, we kind of just say, just go and juice everything. But the reality of it is your palate needs to change. And when you first start out, if these things don't taste well, you're not going to play anymore. You're not going to want to juice. And so every one of the recipes that I created are really palatable. And so I've got things that are like, I call it the five greens, and the five greens would be all green. It's going to be kale, cilantro, parsley. It's going to be green apples, a lime. You're going to have uh, blah, 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 cilantro, five green items. And then I make juices that are, because we're really in an age where there's so much inflammation in the body. And also too, even for athletes, we do get inflammation when we train. And so it's part of recovery. The body needs to be, it creates inflammation in order for the body to ease off so that it can heal it's ever been, whatever stress it's been put under. So I do things that are with raw turmeric, pineapple. These are good anti-inflammatories, and carrots. So I have all of these different combinations. So yeah, the sky's the limit when it's come to juicing. I make things that are made with beets. Yeah, sweet potatoes. I love to juice sweet potatoes. They're delicious. And so, and what I will do is I make it primarily vegetation, and then I either make a flavor enhancer by using something sour like a lemon or a lime, or adding a pineapple or an orange or an apple, anything to kind of just flavor enhance for palatability.
Sure. And what kind of juicer do you use?
Mhm. Well, I started out years ago with the Green Star, and it's still a wonderful juicer. But I got to where my lifestyle was pretty busy, if you will. And I mean it's a good lifestyle though. I have purpose for why I do what I do. I'm not overworked or overtaxed, but I have found that the Nama J2 is a
Yes.
newer juicer on the market. So I have a Nama J.
Yeah, I love the Green Star. I used it most of my life, and then when
Me
I
too.
got to Nama J, everything changed everything for me. And I definitely
Yeah.
recommend people. It just makes it easier. So if anyone's interested in juicing the Nama J2 juicer, I'll put a link below and also a discount coupon below as well. It's a great
Yes.
juicer. So uh, when you stopped eating meat, you mentioned your husband. So you were married at the time when you stopped eating meat. You're still married. Uh, what did he stop eating meat and change his diet, or did he not? How did that work? And do you have children? How's it work in the family aspect in your house?
Mhm. Yeah, again, I was a young mom, and so I had 3 children, I was married, and when I made the lifestyle transformation for me, when I started transitioning out of the standard American diet, the rule of thumb that I used was, because I'm the cook in the household, when it comes to what we eat at home, I'm going to purify that, and I did that for everybody. But if we go out to eat, they could order hamburgers and hot dogs, because that might be, 2 or 3 times a week max. And so I was still having somewhat of control, and I wasn't really kind of lording over my family, because I know it's I went through a lot of emotional transition. I was angry. I was like, why didn't my mom teach me these things? Right? My parents died at young ages. I had to process emotionally, what was going on. And then I was like, how come the church isn't healthy? There was all of these things that I was really emotionally contending with and praying about. So I was really gracious. And even today, because I do work with a lot of people, I'm still very gracious. It's a ministry of grace. When people need to transition, um, there's a lot of guilt that happens. You've got to you might be frustrated, and you might be failing at times. I would say it's okay to fail. You'll just keep failing forward, right? So my husband didn't change for about a year, and after about a year's time, he got on board and he became militant. So he was a little bit more dogmatic with the kids, but all of my kids were raised in a healthy eating pattern. They all did juices. I would make a ton of like healthy snacks for them to bring to school. And I would give double portions so that they could share it with their friends because I knew that their friends ate Twinkies and chips and all those things. And so what my kids would do at school, they didn't tell me till they were older. What they would do is they would trade out their fruit roll-ups, those natural fruit roll-ups, and they would get chips instead. So their friends were happy to eat that stuff, but because they wanted to eat junk, because they were raised on junk, they would lean towards those things. But even today, primarily, they live a primarily healthy diet. When I'm around, they definitely want to eat better because they keep joking around and they keep saying, "Mom, you're probably going to have to, take care of all of us when we get old," because I just am not aging.
Now, after all these years, what about your husband? Is he vegan or is he some where's he at?
Yeah, my husband is primarily a vegetarian. He will eat seafood here and there, but my husband, he's in excellent health. We are both very athletic as well in reference to moving our body a lot. And he actually, when we very first started to really reach out and start to help people, he was at the forefront of the teaching. He's very passionate, so he's still very healthy and vital. And 35 years of marriage and uh, we have seen that basically what God says is the truth. If we just follow, it really does work.
Okay, so from my experience, when I'm trying to teach this health message, which is very similar to yours in the church, when I say
Yeah.
the church, I don't mean everyone, but I will say most of them will reject any
Mhm.
kind of thing to do with diet or health.
Mhm.
If I teach a new ager, they kind of will try anything once, but the church, they got their
Mhm.
mindset and they're not changing. They're addicted, completely addicted to coffee and meat.
Uh-huh.
What's amazing is they spend more time in prayer for healing of diseases that the people of the church have than any other topic, and they just don't get it. And so
Mhm.
when I teach this message, if it's one of the few churches that would even invite me to come teach it, but online or somewhere, the
Mhm.
worst or the hardest people to persuade to look at this way of eating are
Mhm.
Christians. Has that been your experience or no?
I will say sadly that it is a challenge for us. And, I'm really grateful because I've walked with God for about 36 years now. And he chose to give me this revelation. It really did come through revelation. And so with that, when I started to make a charge towards wellness towards my brothers and sisters in Christ, and it was falling on deaf ears, it really allowed me to see that really we are in a spiritual battle. And in this book that I'm writing, that is primarily to believers in the faith, and it wouldn't matter if they're a Christian, if they're a Jew, they are people that have placed their faith in God, right? And they believe that they are created in a designer's perspective. And so for those people that are people of faith, I've been able to serve Muslims and anybody that places their faith in a creator. And so in using these principles that a creator has a perfect plan for us, and going back to specifically to my group of people, which would be the body of Christ, I did see that it fell on deaf ears, but in this writing of the book, God's really given me a child's like heart towards it. And I want to just give you a couple of things. And Paul, this might even help you. Number one, where did the first violation against God take place?
Right in the garden.
It was right in the garden. And what did that conniving little snake, if we will, what did he use to create the deviation between walking in the cool of the garden and the cool of the day with the creator? What did he use to pull us away from our creator?
Well, I'm gonna say 2 things. The first thing he used, and I know the answer you're looking for is food, but the other thing I'm gonna say is a disobedient woman, but that's another story. But
That's okay.
he
He
used food. He used food, the visual food, that people worship and have such a connection to, but he used food, yes.
That's right. Maybe I should change the verbiage and I should say, what did he use, not who, because the who was the woman. And then she gave to her husband and said, hey, this looks good. And he agreed. But he used food. What is he using today?
Absolutely, he used
Nothing's changed.
yes,
So
yeah.
nothing's changed. And so for us as as the messengers, right? God chose to give us this message. And so for me, it's kind of like a beggar telling other beggars where to find the bread of life. And so because he gave this to me through his grace, and I chose to obey it, right? And he's shown me I can be very gracious for other people. And yes, it is sad that this message is not received a lot of times. And it is the number one prayer request is for the healing of the human body. But God doesn't want to just heal our bodies. He wants to have us come into full connection with him, both spirit, soul, and body, because this body is going to perish. But I believe in what he says. He says we can live a very long earthly life without sicknesses and diseases. We would be a witness to the world. So I'm going to be that herald.
It's just beautiful that he's opening eyes to know this truth and see this truth. Uh, and my heart goes out to everyone, whether a believer or not, who's suffering.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yes.
but we cannot stop with this message, even though it goes against what the worship of food is one of the biggest issues we have in the church today, and the pastors in the church are teaching and allowing this in their places. So I'm so glad you're speaking up about this, and I want to encourage everyone that's watching. Those of you that heard my message and you didn't like the messenger, but it's not about the message, it's about the message. Here's another lovely lady who's had the same
Mhm.
revelation about food and is a believer. And go listen to her website. I just want people to get this message and get healthy, because I know that uh, if people eliminated meat from their diet, they will be better off. That's without a doubt, without a doubt. Now, and then there's a lot of other processed food and junk food and everything else, but because the Bible says in Genesis 9:3, God allowed man to eat meat, people they hold on to that so much that they're not even willing to let go to try. So I just give people a challenge. I say, try to go 30 days without meat, just 30 days, and see how you feel. And then you make your decision. And
And it's also an educational thing too, is to help them to understand the physiology of when we put meat in our bodies, because there's no fiber, that it sits in the digestive tract for anywhere from 24, 48, or 72 hours. And if it's sitting in the body at our 98.6 degrees, it's going to putrefy in the body, and it will there if we just we are really, as messengers, we're also educators, and then we allow them to make that choice. They can eat meat, it's biblically allowed, but the meat that they were eating back in Christ's days was a whole food. And it was also very small portions.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so there's really understanding the full gospel, not just pick and choosing, and also just doing that because we love each other. Apostle Paul says in the Bible, he says, all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. You can do what you want. We are free will operators. We are made in his image, but he gave us a choice. And so we can choose life. He says, I set before you life or death today. Choose life. And he says it twice in this conversation. So listen and just obey and see what it's like. See what it will produce. Because I work with a lot of people that are faith-based people as well. And it's really just helping them to renew the mind and to break those old patterns of this world that are binding them and causing them to not, our flesh is a really gnarly beast. The flesh cries out to be satisfied and satiated all the time. And to deny the flesh is very difficult. And that's why the Lord tells us to deny the flesh, but live according to the Spirit. So he's got that for us. But are we going to listen? There are going to be many people that will go maybe to heaven a lot earlier than they could have, or maybe not at all.
Yes, and this is another important thing for me to mention. Now, you stopped eating meat, and then you learned about adding whole foods and doing mostly high raw. I want to let people know that, because people say, "Oh, I tried the vegan diet and I was sick." To change over to eliminate meat is a great step. But if you're going to just replace most of your diet with processed vegan junk food, you're limiting yourself in the healing and also the great benefits of health. So when you eliminate the meat, try to fill up, like what Zita does here, is with this fruits and vegetables as the majority of your plate. And keep that in mind, everybody. And I'm here to help you. And we have all, you know, you could do it. You could do it, everybody. And Zina's here to help you. I'm going to put her address below, her website below. there's a lot of people that I interview that have this knowledge to help you along the way. And our parents didn't know better. They didn't do it on purpose. They just didn't know
That's
better because
right.
nobody taught them. They didn't know. Nobody taught them. So they did just what they were grown up to be taught.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if it wasn't for your sickness or my sickness, we probably wouldn't even have been motivated to change. But we,
100%.
so these are blessings in disguises. At a young age, we got sick and we learned. But we have this information, whether you're a believer or not, this works. And for those of you out there that say you're doing fine on your diet, there's no reason to change, or you tried a vegan diet, it didn't work, or you feel great eating animals. Look, there's a lot of information out there, a lot of confusing information, but our creator is the designer of our bodies and he knows best. And he told us right in his word, his original plan, what is best for us and the way he designed us. So if you get sick, you don't go to a dentist to fix something. You go to a doctor that works on that part of the body. If your car breaks down, you take to a mechanic. So before doing anything, if you're sick, you're not feeling well, go to his word and see what it says. And it says in Genesis 1:29, I created man to eat the fruits and the herbs. That's what it says right there. So this is wonderful. Zina, thank you so much for sharing your story. And just before we go, tell us maybe two or three testimonials of the people that you've worked with or stories you've heard that other people that had a similar situation. They were sick, whether it was minor cold or a major thing like cancer. They stopped eating the meat and then started changing the diet. What are some testimonials that you've heard with this?
Yeah, I mean, I have been so blessed to see people that came to me in such a state of being that, again, they come in and they're like, my whole life is a mess. And we start this protocol towards losing weight, and they start incorporating, again, like the crowding out one step at a time, being gentle on themselves, one step at a time. And eventually, not only are they losing the weight, but they are changing as a whole person. They start to have more their desire for dreaming and looking at, what more can I do in my life? Because they're not stuck on a couch anymore. They're able to do things with their children or even their grandkids, things they never thought they would be able to do in their lives they're doing today. So, I mean, I could give you countless testimonies of different people that came to me, but here's the beautiful thing is they come stuck. But once they get those keys to living, the sky is the limit for that individual. They really can live a full, abundant life. And so, but there's also the hard stories too of people that came very late when they were already at stage 4 cancers. And I have literally watched people's cancer shrink. I've held a cancer, I've held a tumor in my hand underneath the flesh, and that cancer was 12 inches in diameter, and in only 2-week period with it was a very intense protocol, that cancer had gone down, that tumor went down, it shrunk 3 inches within 2 weeks. Person did end up succumbing because the remember cancer, we think that it's like in a spot, but it's actually systemic, so it's actually in the blood, and so it had actually spread already to some of the other vital organs, so this individual ultimately passed away. But I've witnessed disease reverse, and so it is possible. So if you're listening to this today and you are diseased, um, count this as a message to you. This would be a good time for you to really reach out and let us help you. There are a lot of people out there that really do have the answers for you. And we'll not only give you the answers, but I'm a coach, so we'll help you along the journey. You're not going to be alone in this process.
It's amazing that there's just so many non-Christians of different belief systems out there that accept and adopt and do this type of diet, and then when it gets to the church, it's the one place that uh, you gotta have like it's not accepted, and it's like you go to every other belief system out there, and this is like they know this, and we should know this because it's in the word. So I appreciate you and your message so much. And I'm going to put your website below, and all your contact information, your social media is on her website. So I'm going to put it below, but just tell everybody your website as well. For those that can't read, they could hear it. Go ahead, tell them.
All right. Well, thanks again so much, Paul. And for all of you that are listening today, you can reach me at lifecoachzina.com, and that's lifecoach, Zina, lifecoachzina.com. And I do look forward to hearing from you and any comments that you might want to make. We're, as much as we're trying to share things with you, we're also still learning as well. So God bless you all. And Paul, thank you so much for your time and giving me this platform to come and share with you today. You and I are like-minded, and we will live well and die well.
Thank you so much, and I definitely would love to have you back on again as we get those questions below. Maybe we could do a Q&A. Everybody, thank you again for watching. Get to Zina's website. Until then, everybody, have a great day and a great world life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.